this complex was entirely devoted to Ptah and the Stargate mysteries of the ancient Egyptians. This complex was built by the world's first acknowledged architect. His name is Imhotep. He was sort of the Leonardo da Vinci of his age, who built this stairway to heaven, and also the massive 4 miles of tunnels that honeycomb the Sakara complex. Underneath the stairway to heaven, or step pyramid, are 4 miles of tunnels that run out into the desert. And think of just the enormity of this complex that Imhotep was able to conceive and execute. A commoner by birth, Imhotep, whose name means the one who comes in peace, was the high priest of the king Zoser. He was called the son of Ptah, and he is the first human engineer, architect, and physician in history known by name. In depictions that we find at Sakara and elsewhere, we see Imhotep seated on his feathered ascension throne. It's feathered because it flies. Jewish mystics later called it the Merkaba throne. And it tells us that Imhotep himself probably ascended. He was certainly deified centuries later, especially by the Greeks, who tell us that he actually is the first human to become a god. Think about that. The first human to become a deified being was Imhotep, who conceived this whole complex at Sakara and was referred to as a son of Ptah. Some people think that means he was actually an incarnation of Ptah on Earth. Trivia: Imhotep was the one who coined the saying, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we shall die." But actually, I think what he meant was, for tomorrow we shall ascend. So as the son of Ptah, we can have some wiggle room here to speculate that he had the consciousness of Ptah. He might have been an incarnation of Ptah, an earthly incarnation. Maybe he was channeling Ptah. Whatever way, we have to assume or speculate safely, comfortably, that he had the expanded consciousness of Ptah. And this is in part what enabled him to conceive of Sakara and to execute this incredible complex. Well, it's very interesting that the ancient Egyptians taught that by his will, by his thought, Ptah brought the world into existence. It was first conceived by thought and realized by the word. Ptah conceives the world by the thought of his heart and gives life through the magic of his word. Think about that. Think about that in light of what we know today about quantum physics and about how we have to feel it, to believe it, to see it, that if we want to manifest something in our lives, we're taught now to feel it in our heart, to feel it as if it was actually already in existence, in your reality, and to get into that emotional state of what it would be like to have experienced that new job, that item you want to manifest, that relationship or whatever. Feel it to live it. Ptah exactly exemplifies this quantum principle. And then through the power of his word, he brings existence or creation into existence. Well, what is a word? Well, our word is a vibration. In the beginning was the Word, according to the Gospel of John, and the word is love. So we've just circled back now to Ptah, haven't we, who through the power of his heart, through the power of love, he's able to manifest, and then assisting that manifestation is the power of his word or vibration. Isn't it interesting in that context that when we look at Ptah's resurrection stick, we look to the bottom part of it, where his feet would be, highly resembles a tuning fork. It makes me wonder if this resurrection stick is in fact some kind of a manifestation stick that Ptah was able to use to transmit or to actualize his word or his thoughts. So Ptah, very, very powerful extraterrestrial being, bringing very powerful quantum technology, perhaps genetic technology to Earth, and infusing this ancient Egyptian civilization with his consciousness at Sakara through his son, Imhotep. It's also at Sakara, of course, where we find the incredible pyramid of Unas, or what's left of it. It's kind of in pretty dilapidated state these days. But about 60, 70 feet beneath that temple, that pyramid, we find what are called the pyramid texts. And these are considered to be among the oldest religious texts in the world. According to one of their interpreters, Faulkner, a scholar, the pyramid texts should be regarded as part of the Egyptian star religion. In fact, I would go so far to say is that it's actually the Egyptian Stargate religion. Because what the pyramid texts describe is the software, the Stargate metaphysics that goes with the utilization of the hardware, the step pyramid, in fact, all pyramids, including the Great Pyramid itself. In these texts, we learn of utterances that talk about the king becoming a flash of lightning. The purpose of these texts is to assist the king in the process of his divination, providing knowledge and also magic power to the king in the afterlife. The king is entombed underneath this pyramid with these texts written on the walls. His ba, or soul, comes out of his body at death and can read these texts. In fact, what we're told is that these texts are actually magically active. It's not so much that the soul reads these texts, but it's more that these texts act upon, in a magical way, the soul, assisting it in its transformation into a being of light. In utterance 215, the king ascends to the skies as a star. The king joins the sun god, Re. A stairway to the sky is set up for me that I may ascend on it to the sky. There's a summons to the celestial ferryman. I have come to you that you may ferry me across in this ferry boat in which you ferry the gods. The ferry boat, of course, is the Ark of the Millions of Years, the wormhole-shaped boat. The king climbs to the sky in a ladder. The gods who are in the sky are brought to you. The gods who are on earth assemble for you. They place their hands under you. They make a ladder for you so that you may ascend on it into the sky. The doors of the sky are thrown open to you. The doors of the starry firmament are thrown open for you. These are all utterances from the pyramid text that tell us of the transmutation of the pharaoh into a being like lightning and the opening of portals or gateways into the stars into which the king ascends. Now, one of the most magical, in my view, of the hieroglyphs that we see on the pyramid text or in the pyramid text is this glyph here. It was pointed out to me by Laird Scranton in his book on the sacred symbols of Egypt. This is the Egyptian hieroglyph to tear. The Egyptian hieroglyph to tear. We see it all over the place in Egypt, so it's not just isolated to the pyramid text. But what Laird Scranton pointed out, which was absolutely mind-blowing, is that the Egyptian hieroglyph to tear symbolically matches the tearing of the fabric of space-time in a wormhole growing. Now, that's a magic moment right there, because that perfectly dovetails with what we have been already shown at the Temple of Dendera with the Ark of the Millions of Years matching the shape of the wormhole, and the idea that the light body is able to open or tear holes in the fabric of space-time and travel via wormholes throughout eternity. To pull a riff from Ancient Aliens, is it possible that this is how the gods and the ascended humans travel the stars? I believe it is. That is my operating hypothesis or premise. And this is what it's one reason I keep going back to Egypt, to understand this, to look for more clues about how they affected this transformation or transmutation of the Pharaoh into a being of light. The king becomes a flash of lightning. Well, we know for certain that the Great Pyramid itself was a transmutation machine. It's a resurrection machine. That's what the Egyptians told us. It's an ascension device. And so here's this extraordinary photo of a lightning bolt striking the second pyramid. And it's more than just a fun photo because it points us in the direction of the nature of the light body that the ancient Egyptians told us they were transmuting into. Lightning is plasma. You have solids, liquid, gas. There's a fourth state of matter, and that is plasma. All of us see plasma every day in the form of our sun. Our sun is, in fact, a big ball of gas and plasma. What they're telling us is that in our light body transformation, we change from this state of matter into a higher state of matter similar to what our sun is composed of, plasma. In fact, we're told that 99% of the universe is plasma. If you KNOW plasma, if you know plasma, you know the universe, is what we're told. If there is NO plasma, there's no universe, we're also told. So it's very important for us to speculate on or follow this line of thought that the ancient Egyptians were acutely aware of the powers of the sun and our kinship with the sun, that in fact we could in fact become solar beings. Maybe another reason why the Ark of the Millions of Years is referred to as the solar barge. So when Claire and I are with groups in Egypt, we tend to like to kind of just play with the sun. And by that I mean we really are connecting with Ra or Re in an extraordinary way, and asking Re to awaken our consciousness, to send rays of light, of illumination into our being. It infuses us with great joy just to be in the motherland. Here we are on the Nile at our hotel, the Luxor Hilton in Luxor. And just to be in this light is just a moment of remembrance for so many that join us, because many of the people that come on tour with us believe that they've had past lives in Egypt, and they are retracing steps of places they have been before, and seeking to connect with the sun is one great way of doing this. It's wonderful temple scene here, tomb scene from the tomb of Ramses VI, where we see the salute to the sun, as this prayer posture is called, with the solar barge on it, with the divine beings traveling on the sun. The ancient Egyptians aren't the only ones to tell us that the divine beings are connected with the sun. Buddha came from the solar clan. Christ is called the sun god or the son of God. There's many connections to be made with the sun as a conscious entity. And the Egyptians had this really acute sense that the sun played a vital role in our ascension. In fact, they taught that the way to heaven was through the sun. This is what we see here with the lions of yesterday and tomorrow on either side of the horizon symbol, the gateway symbol, with the sun in the center, indicating that the sun is the gateway to the heavenly realm. But again, the sun is plasma. This is a state of matter that was not identified or unidentified until 1879, when William Crookes invented the Crookes tube. He called plasma radiant matter. Basically, a Crookes tube is a glass bulb that gives off fluorescent light when a high voltage current is passed through it. The nature of the Crookes tube cathode ray matter was subsequently identified by British physicist Sir J.J. Thomson in 1897, who called it plasma, or rather it was called plasma by Irving Langmuir in 1928. The cathode ray tube is something we use every day in our lives. It's the basis for television technology, your computer screen, all based on this original discovery and invention of William Crookes of the plasma tube. Now, some of you have probably anticipated where I'm going with this, because you may have seen something that looks just like a Crookes tube in ancient Egypt. And that, of course, is what we find in the crypt at Dendera, the Temple of Hathor, or the Temple of Love and Joy. Famously, in the 1960s and early 70s, Eric von Daniken saw the Crookes tube, or the light bulb, as he referred to it, at Dendera, and said, this is evidence of ancient alien technology, that this, in fact, is an early example of the use of electricity in ancient Egypt. And I think that's entirely possible, but I also think there's a bigger mystery that is alluded to here, and that's what I want to talk about with you all today. This is the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, the Temple of Love and Joy. Always one of our favorite tour stops when we're in Egypt. It's one of the most peaceful places in Egypt among many peaceful places. Built around 330 BC by the Ptolemaic kings of Macedonia, who took power in Alexandria, Egypt, and rebuilt many of these ancient Egyptian temples, including Dendera, which they built on the pad of a former temple that once existed here. In the ceiling of Dendera, in the interior, is where we see these incredible scenes of the Ptolemaic kings, these humans who have gone through this process of transmutation and attained their non-molecular light body. In the crypt is where we find these extraordinary scenes that von Daniken identified as a light bulb, but what I'm going to suggest to you now may in fact be something even more mysterious than that. There are 5 of these chambers, these crypts, underneath the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. There was a statue of the goddess Hathor that was stored in here. It's a very sacred part of the temple. It's possible that because it's underneath the current level temple, that this may have been part of the original temple that was in place, the one that the Ptolemaic kings built on top of. Here I am with my back to the wall that has the scene of the so-called light bulbs looking down through the crypt. You can see it's very narrow, and it has several chambers within it. And then on the wall that I'm standing at is where we actually see these light bulb scenes, or so-called light bulb scenes. If they're not light bulbs, they're definitely plasma tubes. The symbolic correspondence is very direct. In fact, in my opinion, it's more direct than this being some kind of an incandescent light bulb. So where my thinking took me on this is that if this is a plasma tube, who are the beings that are operating this plasma tube? And what are they ultimately trying to show us? Well, here is a plasma tube, a current day depiction of a plasma tube. What we see are a bunch of positrons in blue, which are the antimatter siblings of electrons, traveling down the tube of hot ionized gas, or plasma, in orange. And what we see is the wake of those positrons as they go through the plasma. So compare that image with what we see at Dendera. Is the serpent a filament of a light bulb, or is it the wake of positrons going through a tube of hot ionized gas? In my opinion, it's a plasma tube. And this is what is being shown to us here. There are actually 3 representations of these plasma tubes at Dendera. There's one upstairs in color that I'm showing you here, with these blue beings operating the plasma tubes. And there's one out back in a separate little chapel called the Isis Chapel, which talks about the birth. It's a birthing chapel or chamber of Isis. And we also see the plasma tubes on the wall of this Isis chapel. So these are the only 3 places in ancient Egypt where you will see these plasma tubes. And so they have to have some kind of powerful significance. And what I believe they're pointing us to is that the beings who are operating them are not flesh and blood beings. Look at the way they are portrayed on the wall here. They have double faces. They have double skins. That to me is a very telling clue. They're trying to tell us something about these beings who are considerably larger than this being who is kneeling underneath the plasma tube. You might describe them as giants compared to the kneeling figure who could be a human. Why did the ancient Egyptian artists, who do not make mistakes, by the way, their artistry is masterful in almost every single instance where you see it, why do they portray them with this double face? Is it because they're trying to show two people or multiple people holding or operating these plasma tubes? My opinion is that they're trying to show us that this is actually their double body, and what they're showing us is their etheric double, their ethereal body, their fog-like, luminous light body, their plasma body. Their plasma body that lives in a higher energy universe. As Robert Monroe, founder of the Monroe Institute, says, the plasma body is normally invisible to the naked eye. And in order for it to be visible, it must either reflect or radiate light. I think that what we're looking at here are plasma life forms, plasma beings, who have bioplasma bodies. That's the light body of the gods. These are the electromagnetic bodies which generate electromagnetic fields and radiate electromagnetic waves similar to the aurora borealis of our planet, which is also plasma. When cosmic rays come from off the sun, it stimulates the ionosphere and produces this extraordinary display of colored lights. They occur when the solar wind particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field collide with molecules of air in the upper atmosphere, the ionosphere, and they produce this incredibly spectacular sight of these rapidly shifting patches of color and dancing columns of light of various rainbow-colored hues. The aurora borealis.